Assange's top volunteers for WikiLeaks was actually an FBI informant.
Lo que parecía un simple retrato de un hacker convertido en espía reveló una trama mucho más oscura: traición, secretos y el precio de la verdad. A Dangerous Boy desvela los rincones más turbios de la vida de Siggi, un personaje tan real como inquietante.
As far as I know, he just sexually abused them.
Hola a todos y bienvenidos a DocuCraft. Hoy exploraremos un documental fascinante, lleno de dilemas éticos y narrativos. A Dangerous Boy, dirigido por Ole Bendtzen.
If you fall for a story like that.
So a key witness against WikiLeaks, Siggi the hacker.
La película nos sumerge en la vida de Siggi, un activista islandés profundamente vinculado al movimiento WikiLeaks, desde su juventud rebelde hasta su papel como hacker y defensor de la transparencia. Siggi es un personaje con múltiples capas, y el montaje hace un trabajo magistral al presentarlo no solo como un activista, sino como una persona compleja, llena de contradicciones y vulnerabilidades. Me llamó la atención mientras veía este documental el ritmo narrativo. A pesar de que los eventos reales se desarrollan durante 10 años, el montaje logra mantener un flujo continuo que te mantiene completamente enganchado. Esto requiere un equilibrio complicado: seleccionar los momentos claves y combinarlos para construir una narrativa coherente. Otro punto fascinante es cómo el montaje refuerza la objetividad del documental. Todo está diseñado para que seas tú, espectador, quien saque sus propias conclusiones. En este sentido, el montaje se convierte en una herramienta ética, casi como un lenguaje propio que añade otra capa a la historia. Imaginaos la cantidad de material que el equipo acumuló tras seguir a Siggi durante tantos años. En esta entrevista, Ole nos contará cómo fue acercarse a un personaje tan controvertido, los retos de narrar una historia tan rica y las decisiones detrás del montaje que hicieron de A Dangerous Boy una obra única. Así que, si os interesa saber más sobre WikiLeaks, Siggi the Hacker y el arte del montaje documental, acompañadme en esta conversación. Dentro entrevista.
Well, I read about Siggi back in 2012. He was in a newspaper article where I read about this boy being involved with WikiLeaks, being the sidekick to Julian Assange, and then ending up becoming an FBI informant, spying within the WikiLeaks. And everything surrounding this boy just sounded like it was a fiction, like it was something that was made up. But it was true, it was real. At least that's how it was presented in the newspaper article more than 10 years ago. And I just thought that if half of this is true, then it's just an amazing documentary. And that's why I decided to try to talk to my producer about it. And I remember she said back then that, yeah, it is an amazing story, but it's all about access. Like everything is about, can you get to him? And I thought that's true. So I just called. I knew that he was in a prison. He was in a city prison, a weird prison up in Reykjavik. And I called up. And the newspaper that I have read about Siggi was called Politiken. Now, Siggi had a lot of cases because the interrogation with the FBI took place on Danish ground, among other places. But 3 interrogations of Siggi took place in Denmark. So there was actually some cases that was ongoing in Denmark with Siggi. And Politiken is similar to how you say police in Iceland. So when I called the prison, I think that they misunderstood that I read an article in Politiken. They thought I was Danish police. So they got me in touch with Siggi. And for that reason, I started talking with him. And then he agreed to invite me. He can invite me to the prison, which he did. And pretty much a week later, I just flew up there. And all I had was that article. I knew nothing else about Siggi. I knew nothing else except that I just thought if some of this is true, it's just amazing. So pretty much when we meet Siggi in the movie, in the red shirt in the prison cell, that is exactly the same time I met him for the first time, now 12 years ago. And obviously back then I just talked to him for hours, and it was pretty much research while filming. And that just, was an amazing interview and an amazing ride, an amazing meeting with Siggi that surprised myself. But of course, what was more surprising to me was this, that I had no idea back then that this would be the starting point of a 10-year journey with Siggi and with this movie that ended up being A Dangerous Boy.
You didn't knew that it was going to take so many time, but did you knew what kind of documentary did you want to make?
That was a researching interview, but from then on, it kind of developed into being a documentary where we wrote a very tight script. We pretty much, it was a retrospective series. So the idea was to make a documentary, but looking back, like we knew everything that had happened. Then we started, actually after that interview, we started a process of researching, gathering all kinds of information, looking into archive, starting writing a script, starting to get access to all the other key players that is surrounding Siggi and surrounding the story of A Dangerous Boy and all the key players from within WikiLeaks. So then we started pretty much writing and preparing the movie, which was very detailed, and we could do that because we knew how it would end. We had no idea that what would come later on, years along the road, was that we would start to investigate our own main character, Siggi, that there would actually start an investigation track, a different story track where we don't know where it's ending, where we're actually more in line with how you would consider traditional documentary filmmaking, where you don't know the outcome. When we started out, it was like these typical Netflix documentaries where you know the story, you know here's the guy, you know how it will end. He will end up in prison, or he will save the rainforest, or whatever. You know how it will end because you're looking back. And then you just pretty much, I make it sound easy, but you get access to all the right characters that can tell the story, and then you have a rich archive material. So that's how we thought we were going to make the movie. And we even have meetings with Netflix, and it was very close to being sold to Netflix. And I was sad that we didn't sell it back then, but now I'm actually happy that they didn't buy it, because that movie that we thought we were going to make turned out to be not a falsehood, but not the right movie to make, at least not from a moral standpoint, because all these things started to surface surrounding Siggi that we could simply not continue making the movie that we thought that we were going to make, if that makes any sense. And that's why we had to change the way we thought about the movie, the way we wanted to make the movie, the way we saw Siggi. So you can also see that in the movie, that it kind of changes. It's like you're driving a car, and then all of a sudden the story changes gears. You know, you feel it, and you feel that in the movie too. The entire style of the movie starts to change as you experience that the filmmakers, the team starts to change their POV on their main character and starts to become suspicious about everything being said by everyone in the story.
So you were talking about moral, and this is like a documentary that has like a characters and topics that morally are in gray areas.
Yes.
My feeling watching the documentary is, okay, now I'm the Siggi side.
Yeah.
And then the events take me to a place where I think, no, I'm just not anymore in the Siggi side.
Yeah.
But then going on, I'm again on the Siggi side. So it's I'm talking about Siggi, but there is a plenty of characters that you can think that they are in the right spot, and then that spot is turning to the other side. So it's very interesting the work you did in the documentary. You are not supporting any of them. You are just telling the facts and make the audience decide which is right, which is wrong. And this is like a very, very, very amazing work.
Well, thank you. That is exactly, I'm so happy to hear, because that is what we wanted, for people to see it like that. And obviously it's difficult, because that is not the way you usually tell a story. Usually you have a very clear hero. You pretty much know it from the beginning, a very clear villain. And you also have a pretty good idea that the hero will win at the end. The interesting part is to find out how he will win, how he will overcome all the struggles. Whereas here we have a hero and a villain kind of mixed up in the same person, the main character, but also all the other characters surrounding Siggi. So you don't know who to root for. And obviously when we started to actually tell the story more along the lines how you usually tell a story in film or documentary filmmaking. It was not according to our own beliefs making the movie. And every time we kind of navigated away from how we felt ourselves, the movie started to lose energy, even though it became more easy for us to edit, because then we had a right path to walk along to finish the movie. So even though it was complicated and took longer time, we decided, listen, we need to stay true to ourselves, and we need to put our own indecisiveness of who's the good guy and who are the bad guys, and put that into the movie and let that work as an engine for the audience to, exactly like you say, make up their own mind and shed light on everything, all aspects, put it all out there for the audience to decide themselves what do they believe in. Kind of like a jury, kind of like the audience becomes the jury of Siggi, but also all the other characters surrounding Siggi, because they all have an agenda. So who's telling the truth? Who's lying? Let that be up to the audience. Kind of have the camera turned back at the audience from the movie screen and looking on you. So you become the judge. And obviously that was difficult because audiences today, they have very little patience. So they kind of want to kind of know the road that they are walking by, what to expect. And here we keep throwing the audience off the main road or the way that they think that they're going to perceive this. But we also discovered that is exactly the key for many people. That's why I'm happy to hear what you're saying, because it actually made you intrigued. It made you keep watching. It actually made you fascinated. And that's what I'm very proud of with this movie, is that it doesn't come as a showstopper. It actually works a different way to leave the audience, not in the blind, but leave them with every time they think that they know what the story is about, we throw the audience off, and then they get on that track, and then they are riding on that track, and as soon as they think, now I know, we throw them off again. And then they're on this track, and they continue on this track, and they think, now I know where I'm going, and then they get thrown off again. That was kind of our idea, because it was true to our own way. We thought that we were on the right track, and then we were thrown off. So that's why it also becomes all of a sudden a little bit about the process, and that was not the idea at all in the beginning. It was a retrospective story. We had a very detailed script that we had to throw away. We spent 2 years on writing the script, and we just had to pretty much throw it away. It wasn't a waste of time, but we couldn't follow the script anymore. It wouldn't be right.
Did you face ethical or emotional challenges during this documentary as a director, or even as a person who is knowing more and more details about your characters in front of the camera?
Yes, that was exactly the biggest challenge. It was that. And like you say, exactly as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker, but also as a person. And it's not only me, it's the rest of the people making this movie, especially the editing team. We were all, to be honest, completely stressed out and worn out, because we had such a hard time finding out what is up and down and what is ended up being gray, but what is black and white. You're always looking for some definitive answers, and then it deals with all these ethical issues that makes you question yourself. Many people think that we are monsters just by making this movie, just by listening to what they perceive as a monster. We're not only listening to him, we're making a movie about him, which makes us monsters. You have to overcome that. I do understand where they're coming from. I do understand that they do not like my movie. If you start censoring everything, and if you start putting constraints on who is allowed to make a movie and what the topic should be, or who should be the main character, I think you're walking down a slippery slope. Then it's becomes censorship, and that is actually not what WikiLeaks was about either, right? It was about transparency and free journalism, getting the truth out there. So it's very easy for journalists or filmmakers to make a movie fast, to say, here it is, it's black and it's white, and poof, you put it out. What is more difficult, at least for me and for us, and why it took such a long time, was to put out all the gray that people usually bored by. And we had to put it out there to be true ethically, morally to ourselves as documentary filmmakers, but also as human beings to the best of our ability. and put it out there, but do it in a narrative that was interesting, that was intriguing, that provided suspense, entertainment, a sense of humor even. Put it out there so people would not just turn off, but actually want to continue seeing this thing that is in many ways not in line with how you usually tell a story.
Did you knew at the beginning that you were using your voice behind the camera? I'm asking this because here I found people that they don't like at all using the voice of the filmmaker behind the camera. And in the other hand, you have the filmmaker who puts himself or herself besides the character in the interview. Mm-hmm. Because what I find sometimes is like, here is we don't want the jump cut in the interview. We don't want to hear the people behind the camera. We just want to keep it clean. And sometimes in this way, you're losing the contact with the story and with the characters. So this is something that is part of your style as a filmmaker, or it depends from project to project?
It depends on project to project. And again, this is why A Dangerous Boys was such a wild ride for all of us, because as mentioned in the beginning, I had no voice in the movie. You wouldn't hear me, you wouldn't see me, because it was a retrospective. So many of the interviews, I'm keeping a long pause for the editor to come in. I'm trying to make sure that the characters are answering while including my questions, so we could cut my question out. Now, that changed because we had to investigate our own character. We started to use our own frustration, and when the narrative all the time twists and turns, we had to also turn the way of making the movie, which is why you all of a sudden hear my questions getting in there. And slowly, especially more than half into the film, the filmmaker, in this case me, starts to become a character in his own film. But you don't see me for the first, 50, 60% of the film. But then slowly you start to realize that there's somebody behind the camera. You start hearing my voice, you start hearing my questions, you start hearing that I have a close relationship with Siggi. You start seeing the cuts where we haven't even begun yet.
Excuse me, but I find this very, very funny, which is the scene where Siggi is eating the gummies before the interview.
Yeah, exactly. And we left that in there. Of course, we knew that we were rolling, but we didn't know what Siggi was doing, and it shows something about Siggi, that he will eat gummy bears, first of all, and just before filming. But it also shows a nice side to him. If he is many people see him as a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They see him as a monster, as a psychopath, as a vicious person. And I have an understanding from where they're coming from with their experience with Siggi, but he is just the best. He is just wearing the best disguise, and the way to show that is, for instance, through that gummy bear scene. That here's the big guy walking around eating gummy bears. He's not this athletic serial killer, very slim and ninja-like person. Not at all. He will tumble over things and eat gummy bears. He will be the least person you would expect to be able to carry out some of the things that many of the people in A Dangerous Boys is accusing him of, which I thought was a very interesting perspective to put in there. Because this is also, I'm not saying that Siggi has many faces, but one of his faces is certainly this of a goofy boy eating with a teddy bear, eating wine gums. So yeah, we wanted to leave that in there. And then you can also hear from our dialogue with the teddy bears that there's a relationship, that these two people know each other, the filmmaker behind the screen and his main character. And as the film continues, slowly but surely I make a way into the movie and becoming like a character myself. But actually at one point we were also working with a voiceover, that you heard my reflections on a voiceover. And I hate that. I hate documentary films where the filmmaker needs to put his own voiceover in there and include his audience in his thoughts. I hate these types. So I was really fighting against it, And we were pushing it, and we put it, and at the end I decided to fire it because I know that it would have been easier for us to have there was many things that we could explain much easier by using a voiceover, but it just became for me I don't know, I just don't like to have that in a documentary film. So I'm very happy that we were able to tell the story without using my voiceover, but you sometimes feel that it's in there.
Hello, there you are.
Yeah, sorry. Now I'm on my mobile phone. We should, of course, have. I'm charging it now. I apologize for that.
The film has characters with ongoing legal cases, and you have also very sensitive photos and videos. So did you have like a team to let you know what could you use?
Yes, we did, and that was a long process because there's a lot of the things in a dangerous sport that you're saying is sensitive. Some of them are legal matters. So we had a lawyer. We had our own lawyer in the production company working for us, clearing the things that we were uncertain about. We had an archive person working for us, clearing all the archives used in the movie. And then our two main finances, the national TV station and the DFI, they also had lawyers. So there was a long process, and some of the things is not in the movie that we actually edited and was put in the movie, but for various reasons we decided to take it out. So yes, that was in itself a long journey, all the legal matters in the movie.
And because the documentary is spending so many years, how did you manage the editing? I mean, you were editing as soon as you had new sequences?
That was because, as you can imagine, none of us, the film team, was working consistently on this for 10 years. So we were doing other things in between. And one main reason was also that we ran out of money. We had to apply for additional fundings. We started out by having 3 different slates of development money until we finally got production, financing for production. But when the story changed, we had to change the entire idea of how to make this movie, which is why it excluded the way of what we thought was to write a tight script, make sure we had of all the archives, make sure that we have access to all the key players, interview them in a master interview, and then go to the editing board. That way you could pretty much make it very smooth, the way they do it in many of the documentaries made in Netflix are made that way, that you have a tight script, you know what the story will be like, feel like, how the ending is, how the beginning is, how the middle is, and you get a green light, and then you pretty much just gather all the information and you edit. I make it sound very easy, but it is definitely easier in the way we did it. Since we changed the approach, we started to film, go back at the editing board, find out new leads, find out new ways we wanted to ask questions, find out new scenes we wanted to do, go back, film, do that, come back to the editing room, edit again, and that way back and forth, which obviously is complicated, but it just makes it so much more interesting than if you film everything and then you go to the editing room. That makes it, there's a lot of things you lose out on. I understand why, because it just takes such a long time to do it the way we did it, but I'm very happy that we did and that we found a solution to do it. So yeah, it was back and forth.
Are you the kind of filmmaker that you think before going into the edit room? I mean, you have pretty much like a script or like a rough cut writing in a paper, or you just let the editor, you tell him the main concepts and you just let him or she work?
It's different from project to project, but with the dangerous part, I thought it would be very tight, like the script, we would follow the script. It turned out not to be that way. So, especially with one of the editors, I had a very close working relationship. He also ended up filming a lot of the movie. He's not a DOP, but at what we thought in the beginning, we have a big film team and everything is like high production, and it ended up pretty much just being me and the editor filming. And part of the things I filmed is actually filmed on this phone that I'm talking to you right now. I mean, it ended up being a big setup and ended up being like nobody. so, uh, so I had a very close working relationship with him, and the way I like to make it is, especially in the beginning. Now I'm not talking about the dangerous, but I'm talking about all the things that I'm doing. I like the editors to be alone in the beginning and come up with ideas, because usually I'm also so attached to the filming and the production part of it that I'm not the best one to do the first selection of scenes and do the first selection of I wouldn't say a first cut, of course, but something rough. And then later on, if I can get my way, I like to get in, and then slowly at the end I'm there all the time. So I start by not really being there, and then finish off being there all the time. I'm not this person that I believe that the editors can do a better job than myself. That's why I hire them. So, and the DOP is a better DOP than me, which is why I hire him. So I also expect them to be better at it than I am. But I come in all the time at the end, but I'm not very present at the beginning.
You as a filmmaker, what did you learn about doing A Dangerous Boy?
Oh, I'm still in the process of finding the answer to that question, because it was such a mind-blowing ride doing this movie, obviously, since it took 10 years. But I would say one thing is that always stick to how you feel and stick to what reality is. As soon as you start sort of getting in the way with your own ideas of telling the story in a fiction way, like that, you start to become more of a script writer. We always lost out when we started to do that. When we started just staying true to our own feelings and to how we saw it and trying to implement reality and the truth, the stronger the story became. But it's sometimes difficult because it's weird. It's like, it sounds obvious when I say it now. Obviously, that's what you're supposed to do. But with time constraints and people, finances wanting clear answers, you tend to jump to something that you sounds good, or that would make a good story, but it's not exactly like that, and you try to force it into your narrative, and that's when you start to lose out. Reality will always show you the road, and it will always come up with something better than yourself.
What did you make you to be a filmmaker?
If I have to narrow it down, it is my curiosity and love for human beings, other places, other cultures, traveling. I always love to travel. I'm talking to you from a camper van now in Greece. I'm just so interested in psychology and how we human beings interact. And all of that, traveling, seeing new places, meeting new people, all comes together. The love of movies, the love of telling a story in an entertaining way, shaping it, putting together music, sound, rhythm, relationships, all of that just comes together in documentary filmmaking, which is why also I've made, I mean, so many projects that never happened, right? Like I think we all do. We start to make a project, and for whatever reason, we don't finish it because we cannot get the support, we don't get the financing, the characters doesn't want to do it at the end, or whatever the reason is. I've had many movies that was never made that I started out on, but it's always worth something to me because I always learned something. I always saw something new. I always met somebody new. I always had that with me. And that, I think, is just, I don't know what other type of business you can say that about, but I always had an experience, even though it never turned out to be a movie. And I feel very blessed that it is like that. It is also extremely tough, as you know, but man, I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Okay, so Ole, we are at the end of the interview. I just want to say that you have all my respect because of what you just said and because of your work in A Dangerous Boy, because not many people takes the time to think about their work and how they want their movie to be shown, and just they surrender very fast, and at the end is something that you can feel in the movie, but you didn't. And I think like a pretty amazing job. You did a very pretty amazing job in A Dangerous Boy, because what you said before is like you kept the balance between the white and black, and you let the audience to be in the gray area and think by themselves what is wrong, what is right, in which side they put themselves. So thank you for your work in A Dangerous Boy, and you have to tell all the team, all the editors, that they did an amazing job. And I have just one final question, which be if you have a recommendation for the audience, a documentary that inspired you or you like recently or old one.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I really actually love this. I don't know if it stands up today, but when I saw it, I was blown away. Some of the things are close to what we're talking about now, that you're following something, you think you know what the story is, and then it changes, and that is you know the jinx, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really thought about that a lot while making this one. I think it has changed a little bit. It's also very old now, but I really like that one. There's also maybe you know it better than I do. The title of it, Alberto. It's Wild Wild. What is it called? It's about this cult in Oregon where they start arming themselves, and they're fighting against the local, and it's like a religious sect. It's called Wild. What's it called?
I can't remember either. Let me check. Okay, Wild Wild Country.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that one. It's. I remember seeing it, and then it was just like binging. You had to see the next episode, right? Because it just became more and more crazy and more absurd, which is the reason why I guess there's many documentaries I could mention. Also, the works of Ulrich Seidel, the Austrian documentary filmmaker, but these two comes to mind because it was also something that shoulders I was standing on making A Dangerous Boy that I kept coming back to, because these films reminded me a little bit about Siggi and a story where you have a narrative that just keeps changing all the time, and where you become suspicious of your own main character.
Y con esto hemos llegado al final de nuestra conversación con Ole, donde hemos explorado no solo los desafíos de narrar una historia tan compleja como la de A Dangerous Boy, sino también el arte del montaje y las decisiones éticas que hacen que este documental sea tan especial. Espero que hayáis disfrutado esta mirada detrás de las cámaras tanto como yo. Si algo queda claro tras esta entrevista es que el montaje no es solo una técnica, sino un lenguaje que puede dar forma a las historias más poderosas, permitiendo que los personajes, los dilemas y las emociones cobren vida. En DocuCraft quiero seguir profundizando en estos temas y compartiendo historias que inspiran a pensar y crear. Así que si te ha gustado esta entrevista no olvides darle like, suscribirte al canal y activar la campanita para no perderte mis próximos vídeos. Gracias por acompañarnos y nos vemos en el próximo capítulo de DocuCraft. Hasta la próxima.